2025 became a year of self discovery, not because I went looking for myself, but because the books I read kept holding up the mirrors. There are books that you finish, and then there are books that finishes something in you. These were not comforting reads. They didn't offer any escape. They asked me to look at power, at loneliness, at love, at the self, and not to look away too quickly. Hello, and welcome back to Novel Nooks, a small corner of the internet for books that leave marks rather than answers. The first book I have on my list is Animal Farm. This book doesn't shock you, it teaches you how easily the shock fades. What unsettled me wasn't the betrayal, but how normal betrayal becomes, how language softens cruelty, how memory is edited, not violently but gradually, until resistance feels pointless, and by the end, nothing feels sudden. And that quiet acceptance is felt far more frightening than rage ever would. The next book I want to talk about is Hamlet. I made a conscious effort this time to read Hamlet without the weight of Shakespeare's reputation, to see the text as a living work rather than a sacred one. When the reverence falls away, the play stops being monumental and starts being intimate. I no longer read Hamlet as a play about revenge, I read it as a meditation on consciousness. Hamlet sees too much. He understands that consequences have action. He understands morality before instinct, and that awareness becomes its own kind of paralysis. There is something deeply human about his city, the exhaustion of thinking in a world that rewards decisiveness over reflection. The next book I have on my list is I Who Have Never Known Men. This book felt like reading in a vacuum, stripped of society, tradition, language, and it asks a terrifying question: what remains when nothing is taught? The narrator doesn't mourn what she never had. The absence of longing is what haunted me the most. It made me realize how much of a humanity is inherited and how fragile it becomes when it's stripped out of context. The next book I have on my list is Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. I don't believe that this is a story about transformation. It's about usefulness. Gregor becomes unrecognizable not because he changes, but because he no longer can serve. What disturbed me was not his isolation, but how quickly loves become an obligation and obligation becomes resentment. It's a brutal reminder that dignity in modern life is often conditional. The next book is The Yellow Wallpaper. This was one of the most suffocating reads of my year, not because of the madness, but because how calmly madness is dismissed. Confinement is framed as care, silencing is framed as treatment, and slowly the autonomy dissolves. It made me think how often are women not heard but managed. The next book is A Little Life. This book doesn't ask for your attention, it asks for endurance. Pain is not an interruption here, it's the landscape. What unsettled me the most was the question it left behind. Is love enough when it runs this deeply? Is survival a victory or merely a continuation? And I still don't know the answer, and maybe that's the point. The next book I have on my list is The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. If I had to choose one book that stayed with me more in a personal way, it would be this one. The Murder of Roger Ackroyd reminded me how much trust we place in the narrator. This book reminded me that storytelling itself can deceive, not through lies but through trust. It made me question how easily I surrender at my authority as a reader, how willingly I accept a voice simply because it spoke calmly. It's a lesson not just in mystery but in perception. And the last book I want to talk about is A Song of Achilles. This book felt like fate breathing. From the beginning, you know what will happen, and yet you still hope. This book was not loud. The love here was constant, not heroic, but loyal. What stayed with me is how tenderness survives, even in a story shaped entirely by loss. As if love's only rebellion against fate is that it exists, that's all. Looking back, I realized something quite unsettling. My best reads of 2025 did not suit me. They sharpened me. They asked me uncomfortable questions about power, identity, sanity, love, and the stories we tell ourselves to survive. And perhaps that's why they stayed. Because some books are not meant to be finished, only carried forward.